Hey, good morning, everybody. I want to talk to you guys today about just domain and range, which is going to be a kind of a new topic for us. This has to do in the greater scheme with functions, which is our overarching topic right now. We're talking about functions. So, normally I'll tell you guys when your principal asks you during our weekly meeting, what are we discussing? We're discussing functions, okay? And we talked about functions last week, and we said essentially it works something like this, that there were inputs, right? Something happened, right? Something happened inside here, and we talked about this. It might be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Those made linear stuff, right? But the other day we also talked about what happens when we start squaring things, what's going to happen when we take the absolute value of things, and what's going to happen when we start taking the square of things. So there's all these different, kind of mathematical concepts that we know that can happen to our inputs. So we're going to put the inputs in, we're going to do some math, and what's going to come out are outputs. And again, we said that our inputs were X, and our outputs, they used to be Y, but now we're going to kind of start to phase out Y. We're kind of going to not just totally ignore it, but we're going to start talking about f of X, right? So if you have any questions about this notation, please go back and watch earlier video. I don't care if you guys are working a couple days behind. It really doesn't matter. You're going to have to work at your own pace with some of this stuff, because I know you guys have other things going on in your lives. If you miss a day, don't try and skip that day and go to, the following day's work. Math is very cumulative, so if you miss a day, you need to make up that day because you're not going to be able to go forward. So some of you guys have had some situations where you're working way behind. Please go finish your work from the last couple days. Please don't try and jump straight to this. If you've missed 5 days, it's not going to make any sense, okay? I'd rather you guys get a good understanding of things by going back. So I'm sorry, I digress. So anyway, we're going to be talking about these inputs and outputs. Now, we said we can put in lots of different numbers, right? We can put in whole different sets of numbers. Like what happens if I put in 1, then what comes out? What happens when I put in 2, what comes out? What happens when I put in 15, what comes out? What happens when I put in 0? What happens when I put in negative 75, right? What's going to happen, right? I'm going to put in some numbers, some numbers are going to come out. And then what's going to happen? We're going to graph those numbers. So what we're going to say is all the numbers that we can put in that give us an answer are going to be what we call our domain. Okay, so your domain, first of all, is a set of numbers. So it's a set, so we get to use those funny brackets that everybody has a hard time drawing. Okay? Okay, your domain is a set of numbers. It's a set of inputs. Okay, your range is going to be your set of outputs. Okay, so a couple things we have to recall from sets. Number one, they go in these funky things. Okay, the IXL things are not going to. Oh wow, your IXL thing is not going to say that, but we're always going to start with this. The set of X such that, and then all you need to do is list all your inputs here, okay? Okay, so for your domain, okay, your set of X. Now, sometimes if they say, hey, what's the domain, and you just wrote this, say your domain was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Then you could just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you really would need to let them know that this is the domain. Otherwise, it's just some set of numbers they don't know. By putting it in this form, I'm telling you right away, we're talking about X, and these are the numbers. Okay, so when you start seeing these symbols and everything, that just means that it's a set of numbers. It's just a group of numbers that I can put in for X. Okay, and your range. Okay, say when you put in those numbers. Our rule was you just multiply by 2. Okay? And every input X you put in, you're going to multiply by 2. Then your range will be the set of f of X, right? The outputs for Y, right? And we just multiply all those numbers by 2. 1 times 2, 2 times 2, 3 times 2, 4 times 2, 5 times 2. Okay? So your range would be something like that. And again, if you wanted to get a little more simple, it's just 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay? So all we're talking about is what are you putting in and what's coming out. Okay? Now, we want to focus today just on kind of the notation of things and how to identify the domain and range, okay? So you're going to get two different situations today. They're going to give you a set of XY coordinates, and then they're also going to give you just some points, okay? So hold on, I need to get the questions. Okay, so here, sorry. So here are some questions we're going to go through. I'm not concerned today about whether they're functions or not. We'll talk about whether they're functions or not later. There's going to be some rules that limit what is and what is not allowed to be classified as a function. That's for another day. Today, I just really want to focus on domain and range, okay? So your domain, okay? Your domain is essentially going to be your x values, okay? And your range is essentially going to be your y values, or as we're now calling them, your f of x values, okay? Again, how do you remember this first? How do you remember which is which? I always tell people that x comes first, then y comes second in the alphabet, d comes first, r comes second in the alphabet, domain, then range. Again, domain are all your inputs, x values, and your ranges are your outputs, y, or what we're now calling f of x values, okay? So remember, all these points are x, f of x. Okay, so if you ignored my advice and you've gone a couple days ahead, these are your x, and what used to be your y, we're now calling f of x. Okay. Okay. If you're really not comfortable with f of x, you can call them y for now. Okay. So let's talk about your domain. Your domain is going to be what? I've got a 1. I've got a -2. I've got a -1, and I've got a +1. Okay. Couple things. Number one, they need to be in order from lowest to highest. Okay, so think about your number line. The lowest number here is -2. So what are we going to say? Okay, fancy bracket thing. Don't worry, you don't have to draw those. You can type them now. What are we going to say? Your domain is -2. Okay, then the next lowest number is -1. Then you see that 1 occurs twice. You don't need to write it twice. Okay. So this is your domain, okay? If you've got this part down, just pretty much ordering these numbers from lowest to highest and don't writing anything that repeats, the next step would really be writing it in kind of full notation, okay? So if you've got that, that's fine. How I would really like to see this, though, is the set of x such that, and then same thing, list your numbers from lowest to highest. -2. -1, 1, you don't need to write the 1 twice, so I need to write it. You don't need to write it twice, just the 1 time is fine, okay? Your range, okay, let's take a look at our numbers. I've got -2, I've got 0, I've got 2, and I've got 3. So those are actually nicely in order from lowest to highest already, so what would we say? Again, this should be -2, 0, 2, 3, and again, if you've got that, we would want to say the set of f of x. Okay, so it's just really adding what are we talking about? -2, 0, 2, 3. Okay. So again, this second piece of notation just says, hey, this is what we're talking about. Okay. All right. So next one. So again, we're not really worried about the function. What's the domain? Again, let's go. What do we got? What are x values? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So your domain would be what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Again, already in order. And again, what's your range? Okay, your range would be your f of x values, your y values, if you will. Okay. And again, very nicely, also from lowest to highest. 1, 2, 5, 10, 15. Okay, again, nothing crazy there, right? So they were nice for you in this one. Everything was in nice order and things like that, okay? All right. Of course, well, it would just always be that easy, right? I am going to come back to 3 and 4. Let's go to a couple of examples I got on the next page. Again, for here, again, what's your domain? Okay, let's talk about your x values. So your domain would be what? -2, 0, 5, -2, right? So we got -2, 0, 5, -2, okay? So again, let's write that from lowest to highest. We would say your domain is -2, 0, and 5, okay? So that was these numbers. Let's talk about your range. Your range is going to be these numbers. So what are they? -1, 3, 4, and 3 again. Again, we don't need to write the 3 twice. Okay, so from lowest to highest, these numbers are -1, 3, and 4. All right. Over here, your domain, again, your x values. So what do we got? We've got -1, 0, 2, 3. Conveniently enough, already in lowest to highest order. And your range is 5, 3, 3, -1. So let's go ahead and let's put those -1's lowest, then 3, then 5. Okay. Occasionally, they might do something super mean, like give you guys fractions and have you guys put in fractions. Oh my God, which one of these fractions is lowest? Which one's highest? Okay. First of all, again, what's your domain? Let's start with, I've got 17. I've got 15 over 4. Then I've got 17, 15 over 4, 15, and 17 over 4. Okay, well, 15 over 4 is what? That's going to be what, 3 3/4? Converting these things to decimals is very useful. If you need to use a calculator, use a calculator. And this is going to be 4 1/4. Okay, so again, if we want to rewrite these in proper order, the smallest number is going to be 15 over 4 and 17 over 4. Okay, again, if you want to compare them, they both have the same denominator. It's pretty easy. 15, 17, okay? And again, your range, what do we got? 15 over 4. Then we've got 17. We've got 17 over 4, and then we've got 15. So they were just trying to trip you up here a little bit because they gave you all the same numbers, right? And they gave you all fractions with them. And you notice that these actually have the same domain and range. They just don't necessarily correspond with each other. Okay. In other words, it's not these points that are points. It's not 15, 4, 15, 4, 17, 4, 17, 4, 15, 15, 17, 17. So their domain and range are the same. They don't correspond with one another. Okay. So again, like I said, all I got to do is go through the x values for the domains, go through the y values for the range, list them from lowest to highest. Don't list any repeated numbers. Okay. The other way I'm going to ask you how to do these today is by taking them from a graph, okay? So the domain is all the possible x values. What I want you to think about is if you kind of squished all these, right? If you went like I don't know, I watched Indiana Jones the other day, right? Where you're in the trapped room and the walls are coming in, right? Okay, so you're in this room and the walls are coming in, and you squished all these dots to the center, right? That this dot would come here. This dot would come here, these dots would go here, and these two dots would all get squished into this center line here, right? That's what we're going to kind of talk about for your domain, okay? That if we squished them all together, where would they lie on the x-axis, right? And so if you kind of squished them all together, they would be here, here, and here, right? So going across, what's the lowest one? Yeah, your lowest one is going to be -2. Then I have one at -1. Then I'll have one at +1, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay? If it helps you for the time being, you could write out the coordinates to all these points. This is, if you want to, you could write out the coordinates for all these points. -2, -2, -1, 1. 1, 0, 1, 1, 3, 3, 3, -2, and you could just, pretty much write them out like points like this if you'd like. That's a little more work than you want to do, okay? But again, like I said, think about it. So your domain going across, where do they exist? It exists at -2. It exists at -1. It exists at +1. It exists at +3. So again, if you kind of squish all these numbers onto the x number line, what it would look like, okay? Your range is kind of the same thing, except you'd just be squeezing it the opposite way. How do you squeeze them all onto the y-axis? Again, if I started kind of bringing these two walls in, right? If I started bringing these in and compressing everything, kind of pushing it all into one spot, where would they be? They would end up here, right on the y-axis, here, here, and here, okay? So now kind of going from lowest to highest, I'm going -2, 0, 1, 3. -2, 0, 1, 3. Okay? So again, for this one going across, where the x values exist, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here, and there's one here. So your domain will be all those x values, whereas the x values exist. So again, going across, that's going to be -2, 0, 2, and 3. -2, 0, 2, 3. Give me the fancy squiggles. Okay. And your range again going up will be here, 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 right? We're in here, 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 and here. So where would they be? -2, -1, 1, and 3. Okay. -2, -1, 1, and 3. There are a couple more on the next page. Okay, so again, your domain, again, going across from left to right, well, I got one at -2. I've got one at -1. I've got one at 0. I've got one at 1. I've got one at 2. So again, going across where they exist at these 5 points right here. So your range would be -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. There will be a faster way to write some of these things, okay? And going from lowest to highest, right? I've got 0, right? Then I've got 2, and I've got 3, right? That's where the points exist, okay? So what do we got? 0, 2, 3. All right, and last one, going across, I've got, for my domain, I've got -2, -1, 1, and 3. Oops, I'm sorry, I put these in the wrong spot over here. Sorry. So -2, -1, 1, and 3. -2, -1, 1, and 3. Like I said, we're only concerned about the domain and the range. I'm sorry. This should have been the domain. This should have been the range. Okay. Again, going from lowest to highest, exist here, you exist here, you exist here, and you exist here. So -4, -2, 0, 1. -4, -2, 0, 1. Okay. All right. Like I said, if you guys have questions, please send them over, and I will gladly answer them. Okay. We'll talk about more specifically about what makes it a function, like why this one would not be a function, why this one would be a function tomorrow.